This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good Erev Shabbos Rabbi Sai. I have an amazing presentation on the Yom Tif of Purim. Usually we have a tefillah share on Friday, L'Kavod Purim. We're going to have a share on Purim. The Friday share is dedicated by Rabbi Tzal Rosen in honor of his brother, Tzvi ben Levi Yitzchak, and the Neshama Shaman Aliyah be a male Yosher for his whole family at Yahrtzeit Tzedek. And the learning of Chodesh Adar is dedicated by the Israeli family, Lila Nishmas, their father and grandfather, Rabbi Shua ben Yecheskel, Began Eden Tehei Menuchasai. Okay, Rabbi Sai, this was brought to my attention by my dear friend in France, Rabbi Rafael Ansel, who shared with me something that Rabbi Yisrael Reisman spoke out recently that I was not aware of, and I'm very excited to share it with you. And first of all, I'm sure you all know that I have an unusual connection with the Chida. I can't explain it. I do know that after the war, when the She'eres HaPleita Yidden had no Sfarim, my grandfather, Harav Mordechai Leib Glatstein, whose bris milah was on Tainus Esther 108 years ago, he published for the survivors the Lev David of the Chida, and I believe that because of that I have the zchus to have a kesher somehow with Reb Chaim Yosef David Azulai. And his Yahrtzeit is tonight, Yud Aleph. His Yahrtzeit is tonight, Yud Aleph Adar. So one item of note is, what is the connection between the Chida and the first day you could possibly read Megillas Esther? The Gemara tells us in Megillah that Achashverosh was Malach B'Kippah. Literally, he ruled over the world. But what's interesting is that is not necessarily the real meaning of the Gemara, that he ruled over the whole known world. What, Achashverosh, really? He ruled over Europe? He ruled over Africa? Or just Mehoidu V'Yad Kush? And we're going to see about this. And Rabbi Reisman brings that he saw this in the Lev David of the Chida, in Perek Chav Tes, but he says this is found in the Chida, in Masechta Avodah Zarah, in the Maras Ha'ayin, in the Nachal Eshkol, in his commentary on the Megillah, in the Haggadah Shel Pesach Batei HaNefesh, in the Sefer Simchas HaRegel, in Yosef Tehillos on Tehillim. And he says something that's just out of this world. You ready? Brace yourselves, Rabbi Sai. This is really out of this world. The Chida is bothered by the following question. We're going to first go to the Sefer Lev David of the Chida. In the Lev David of the Chida is bothered that the Jews in Spain and Africa were not under the domain of Achashverosh. You hear this? We always thought that Achashverosh ruled over the whole world. No, he didn't really rule over the whole world. He didn't rule over Spain, and he didn't rule over Africa. And we know Jews were in Spain already from the time of the first Beis HaMikdash. It's a pasuk at the end of Ovadia. The end of Ovadia, it says explicitly that the Jews were chased out of Yerushalayim and they went to Spain. Achashverosh never ruled over Spanish Jewry. He never ruled over
Africa, Rabbi.
What?
Isn't Kush Ethiopia? That's in Africa.
Apparently, Lav Dafka. No, the Chida brings that he didn't rule over Africa, and therefore he asks, why do Sefardim have to observe Purim? Why do African Jews have to observe Purim? They were not under the threat of Achashverosh. By the way, the Ben Yehoyada, Rabbi Reisman brings in Megillah Daf Yud Aleph, says that even though Achashverosh Malach B'Kippah, which sounds like he ruled over the world, no, he didn't actually rule over Asia. It means he only ruled Asia, but not Europe and not Africa, but most of the civilized world. So therefore, let me see, the Chida is troubled. What is the reason why Spanish Jews, Sefardim, have to observe Purim. In fact, in his Haggadah Shel Pesach Batei HaNefesh, he says on Tam Mahu Aimer, Ukiyoytze bezet tiratzti bedrushim lamasha kasvu amafarshim disfarad va'Afrika lo hoyu tachas memshalas Achashverosh v'imkein yesh lachgar delo yiyu chayavim b'Purim. So first he says, well, if Haman would have if Haman would have prevailed, then he would have made sure to spread the decree to the whole world. But Lamaisa, the Chida in the Lev David, and in the Batei HaNefesh, and also in his commentary to Masechta Avodah Zarah, on Daf Tzadi Beis, he also says that one of the arguments of Haman was the Jews are spread all over the world. There's no community of just Jews somewhere. Because Achashverosh was afraid, if he's going to kill the Jews, then there's going to be like a patch. There's going to be like an open patch somewhere. There's going to be like an empty space. And Haman said, no, they're mefuzar mefayred bein ha'amim. But Esther says you're making a mistake. There are communities just of Jews, for example, in Spain or in Africa. Bottom line is, we're learning something very interesting. Number one, Achashverosh didn't actually rule over the world. Number two, the Jews of Spain and Africa were not under the threat of Haman. Says the Chida, so the reason why Jews the world over celebrate Purim is because the Arizal teaches that the light of spiritual energy that came down on Purim was a light the likes of which the world has never seen and will never see. The light of Purim, the oiros of Purim, is an unparalleled or which has no comparison, to the point where the Chassam Sofer writes in his drashas, She'or Kadosh HaKolol b'Megillah Hu Kimat Yoiser Gadol miTorasenu Atzma. The light of Megillah Esther is Kimat greater than the Torah itself. And the Chida says this is an annual light. This is a light that comes annually. I want to read to you his words. He asks, "V'lama kol Yisrael hayom chayavim lasos Purim? V'ani adal basi l'chlal yishav chakira zu." Iboisema mitzad svara v'iboisema gemara al derech ha'emes demeyachar debechol shana meirim umazhirim zehiros yisera v'oirim gedolim. Since annually there is an annual light that comes down on this world, Purim, kechol asher niglu b'mei Mordechai v'Esther, as it was revealed in the times of Mordechai v'Esther, chal al kol Yisrael lekayim es yimei ha'Purim ha'ela b'zaneim. All of Israel has to observe Purim. In other words, Purim is not just a celebration of our salvation. If that's all it was, Sefardim would be exempt. It's a opportunity to access an unparalleled light, which comes down annually. So even those who are not threatened with annihilation have the opportunity to access this unparalleled light. Now something struck me this morning, which I think is Ayam V'Naira. That means Sefardim were never under the threat of Lahashmid La'Regel Yabed. We all know that there's some kind of connection between Haman and Hitler. Just like we find in the Megillah, we have the hanging of the 10 sons of Haman, and it is well known that there was an eerie parallel of the 10 Nazis that were hanged in Nuremberg. In fact, the small letters Tafshin Zayin is somewhat of a prophecy of the future date of the hanging of the 10 sons of Haman. It also occurred to me this week that we've had many enemies in our history, but Haman was the only enemy who said, Lahashmid, Laharoigul Yabed. Lahashmid, I'm going to destroy your soul. Laroig, I'm going to take your life. Ula Abed, I'm going to destroy your bodies. Haman not only wanted to kill us, he wanted to cremate us. What does la'abed mean? The Gemara says, after he killed us, he was going to destroy our bodies. We never had an enemy before Haman or after Haman who wanted to destroy the Jewish body, except for Hitler. Hitler said, I don't just want to kill the Jew. I want to eradicate his memory completely. I want to cremate his body. It occurred to me, we say in the Megillah, in his Mila. What do you mean? The Jews are celebrating Bris Milah on Purim? How is Purim a celebration of Bris Milah? Haman didn't try to take away Bris Milah. Yeah, he did. Because, remember, when Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf, the Jews inflicted on the world two imperfections. The conscience, which is the imperfection of the spirit, and the circumcision, which is the imperfection of the body. And Hitler wanted to eradicate the Jew because the Jew hurled on the world these two mumim, these two imperfections. He said, we Germans are barbarians. And when the Jew is in the world, they represent morality. We can't be our true selves. We can't be barbarians. When we annihilate the Jew, we could revert back to being barbarians. So Hitler wanted to destroy the Jewish body because the circumcision itself represented morality to the German people. That's why Haman wanted la'abed. He wanted to destroy our bodies. Haman wanted to destroy our bodies. He wanted to destroy the Milah. So therefore Purim is a celebration of Visasa in Milah. But isn't it interesting then, that just like we know the Holocaust didn't affect the Sephardic world the way it did Ashkenazic world. And there are reasons given for that. The Imrei Emes is reputed to have said that the Sefardim show greater kavod hatfilah. But whatever the reason is, the facts are that the Sephardic world was not threatened with annihilation through the Holocaust the way the Ashkenazic world was. And if Haman is, so to speak, the predecessor of Hitler, isn't it striking, according to the Chida, that Haman wasn't going to destroy the Sephardic world either? I mean, could you get a more eerie parallel than Purim and the Holocaust, and Haman and Hitler? And to me, I never was aware of this idea that Sephardic Jewry was not threatened in the times of Purim. And isn't that striking that nor was it in the times of the Holocaust? Yes, there were certain communities, whether in Greece or in other places, but for the most part, the Sephardic world under Arab rule, under Muslim rule, didn't have the same threat.
Rabbi, wasn't Spain that he was a part of what Carlos, whatever his name was, he was a part of Hitler's cadre.
But by
all the Spanish Jews there, if Hitler had been successful, you can be sure.
But by that time, there weren't any Jews, right? I mean, maybe there were some, but it was not. The Sephardic Jews in the times of the Holocaust were no longer in Spain or Portugal. You know,
where were they?
The Sephardic Jews, they were in Morocco. There were 1 million Jews. They were in Iran. They were in Iraq. They were in Yemen. So.
Well, North Africa was also, you had Rommel.
Sure.
You're right. I mean, much less so than the Ashkenazi community.
Look, of the 6 million Jews that were murdered, the overwhelming majority were
Ashkenazi.
Yeah. Okay, Rabbi Glatstein. Yeah.
What about the concept that why Sefardim would participate in the miracle of Purim, even though maybe they weren't threatened with Hashmal Harabe, but at the end we know that Kimu V'Kiblu, Jews,
all the Jews,
the Torah Sheval Peh, and that would be a reason to celebrate.
Yeah, look, the Chida is providing an explanation, a sort of a Kabbalistic explanation, that the reason all the Jewish people celebrate Purim is because of the unparalleled spiritual energy that becomes available on an annual basis. But yeah, we could certainly uncover other aspects of Purim that are applicable to all Klal Yisrael. Okay, Rabbi Glatstein, I wish you all a wonderful Shabbos, a Freilichen Purim, everyone. Maybe there'll be a short shir, the Agad the Perka 10:45 on Monday. I wish everyone a good Shabbos, a Freilichen Purim, Kol Tov, Bracha V'Atzlacha. Shabbos, good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.